Where do we even go from here? Now in its 11th model year and counting, you could ask, when is Toyota going to replace this dinosaur? You could also ask, why would they? The current body style 4Runner is killing it, selling better in the past couple of years than it ever has in the entire 36-year history of its nameplate. After all, the 4Runner still effectively stands as a novelty on the market, not because it's so technologically advanced, but because it's mechanically a relic. And in a crowded field of more modern but more generic mid-sized SUVs, this one stands alone. It's nearly as comfortable and practical for everyday use as any of them, but this one is rugged, built to out-tow, out-crawl, and outlast any of those typical crossover models. It all starts with the 4Runner's backbone, or really the fact that it has one at all. This SUV's body rides on a full-length steel ladder frame just like a truck. With the exception of the Jeep Wrangler, which is a very different sort of vehicle, this is the smallest body-on-frame SUV remaining on the market and by a pretty good margin. Historically, many SUVs of this type have been built off of a frame borrowed from their manufacturer's compact pickup, but Toyota has not used this formula in years. Instead, the 5th generation 4Runner rides on a purpose-built SUV frame. So, while the Tacoma and 4Runner share mechanical components in some cases, they're not on the same platform per se. And unlike its pickup truck models, Toyota builds the 4Runner as well as its Lexus version at its flagship Tahara assembly plant in Japan, the same place they build the higher-end Lexuses and the Land Cruisers, which I think says something about the regard that Toyota has for this model. This 5th generation 4Runner's frame is very similar overall to the 2003 to 2009 4th generation models, although it's been tweaked and reinforced in some specific areas. This frame is fully boxed for good stiffness, with coil springs at all 4 corners for good ride control. While a body-on-frame vehicle will never achieve the ride and handling balance of a well-designed unibody, emphasis on the handling, and its added weight doesn't help fuel economy, it matches a V8 half-ton Chevy's. This is how you want your vehicle constructed if you value toughness above all else. This is exactly what gives the 4Runner its edge in towing, off-roading, and longevity, and nothing beats body-on-frame for ease of repair. Another relic is the 4Runner's solid rear axle. While even many of the remaining body-on-frame SUVs on the market have migrated to an independent rear suspension by now for its improved space efficiency, handling, and ride quality, the old solid axle, just like the ladder frame, will always be the king for outright durability and contributes to the 4Runner's strong 5,000-pound towing capacity. The 4Runner's rear axle is located by 4 links, and front suspension is an independent double wishbone design. Stabilizer bars are provided both front and rear, and a standard ensemble of skid plates protects the 4Runner's undercarriage from debris. That old-school truck construction combines with the 4Runner's big dimensions, heavy weight of about 4,700 pounds in this particular form, high center of gravity thanks to that 9.6 inches of ground clearance, and softly sprung suspension to produce a ride that is generally comfortable but not particularly well controlled. This is a clumsy beast, lumbering around town with floaty, bobbing motions. Bumps reverberate through the cabin with an old-timey shudder that's intrusive but not jarring. The more you ask of it on the road, say turning combined with rough pavement, the vaguer it gets. Low-speed maneuvering feels like black magic, and curbs are avoided chiefly, I suppose, through sheer luck. Then again, it's a 4Runner. If it can't handle a scrape with the occasional stray obstacle, then what can? The 4-wheel disc brakes, which benefit from a 2014 line revision to improve pedal feel, scrub off lots of momentum smoothly and confidently. They may be the single sharpest element of this modern land yacht's driving experience. Now this is, to be exact, a 2018 SR5 Premium 4x4. If that sounds like a mouthful, that's because it is. The 4Runner lineup is quite a tangled web of various trim levels, mechanical features, and options. But once you get your head wrapped around it, this is a very user-configurable machine. While the 4Runner's reputation is largely based on its off-roading chops, it does offer a 2-wheel drive version in its SR5 and limited trims. The 2-wheel drive 5th Gen 4Runners come with what Toyota calls an auto limited slip rear differential. This is not a mechanical limited slip differential. Auto limited slip is effectively a fancy name for traction control. It uses the brakes to limit free spinning of the rear wheel that has lost traction in order to force torque to the wheel that has more traction. All SR5 and limited 4Runners utilize this mechanically open rear end. Slotting in between the base SR5 and upscale limited trims is the TRD Off-Road. This four-wheel drive only version comes standard with something special that was notably missing from the 4th generation 4Runner, an electronically locking rear differential. This is a particularly choice item for getting out of sticky situations. Like the 4-wheel drive SR5, the Off-Road's 4x4 is a part-time system with no center differential. Since there's no slip between the front and rear axles, this system is meant to be operated in two-wheel drive mode on dry pavement and only switched into 4-wheel drive when conditions call for it. The 4-wheel drive SR5 and off-road models both feature a 2-speed transfer case with one noteworthy difference. The SR5's transfer case is actuated electronically through a dial in the cabin, while the off-road's transfer case is actuated mechanically via a lever. This mechanically actuated system costs extra to make and should offer some additional margin of durability. The 4-wheel drive Limited offered yet another setup. Its full-time 4-wheel drive system does not have a 2-wheel drive mode. Instead, its 2-speed transfer case houses a Torsen limited slip center differential that locks electronically. This system operates normally in high-range 4-wheel drive with the center differential unlocked and controlling slip between the front and rear axles mechanically. This is effectively all-wheel drive mode. From here, the center differential can be locked, putting you into true 4-wheel drive, and from there, you can drop the transfer case down into 4 low. Big picture, the limited 4-wheel drive operates normally in all-wheel drive mode, while all other models operate normally in 2-wheel drive. From here, in all 4-wheel drive models, you can enter 4 high locked and then 4 low locked. Finally, the TRD Pro is the most expensive and the most off-road oriented of all the 5th Gen 4Runners, and it offers the same part-time 4-wheel drive, locking rear differential, and mechanically actuated transfer case as the aforementioned TRD Off-Road, but it also comes with a fully upgraded suspension, featuring TRD springs and Bilstein shocks. The TRD Pro also comes with a bunch of appearance upgrades: TRD wheels, grille, shift knob, floor mats, skid plates, etc. These items are available, by the way, as dealer-installed options on any 4Runner regardless of trim. This particular SR5 Premium, for instance, has those TRD wheels. The other thing that I think looks really good is the TRD grille, not optioned here. All 4-wheel drive 4Runners come with several additional off-road aids. For instance, A-Track, which is, like the 2-wheel drive model's auto-limited slip, effectively a Toyota marketing term for a particular form of traction control. A-Track modulates brake pressure when a 4Runner is in low-range 4-wheel drive to limit wheel spin and attempt to keep all 4 wheels moving at the same speed. In addition to A-Track, this 4x4 SR5 also features downhill assist control and hill start assist, 2 more electronic aids aimed at increasing traction. Hill Start Assist, or HAC, is used when accelerating from a stop on steep or slippery inclines. By applying brake pressure, it can prevent a loss of traction as the driver responds to rolling backwards by hitting the throttle, but unlike some hill hold features found in manual transmission cars, this system is not really intended to hold the car in place for any length of time, so the scope of its effectiveness is pretty limited. Downhill Assist Control, or DAC, can be activated when descending steep or slippery grades and uses brake pressure to keep all 4 wheels moving slowly at the same speed, preventing a loss of traction and keeping the 4Runner moving in a straight line. These aids are nice touches, but the 4Runner's robust 4-wheel drive hardware and good bones are really what make it one of the most capable off-road SUVs on the market. In fact, it's probably second only to the Jeep Wrangler in this regard, although it's not a particularly close second. While I do have some trail experience with the old 3rd Gen 4Runner, I have had no such opportunity with a later model 4Runner, and I'm not an off-roading expert. I'll defer to a 2017 article on trail4runner.com that reports, quote, the 5th Gen does not come off-road ready out of the gates, it comes fire road ready out of the gates. Of course, the 4Runner's aftermarket support is overwhelming, and Toyota does offer the TRD Pro with its upgraded suspension for maximum stock capability. But there's no getting around the fact that this 4Runner is simply much more massive and on-road oriented than a Jeep Wrangler or even its own predecessors. And as an on-road vehicle, you have to admit that for everyday practicality, the 4Runner really succeeds. The payoff for those unwieldy dimensions is cavernous cargo and passenger space. I have to say, The amount of people and stuff that you can easily and comfortably place into this box is a real selling point. With the rear seats in the upright position, the rear cargo area is big and neatly shaped, and the hatch opens wide. The floor is a little high thanks to that old-timey frame construction and also to the solid rear axle, but the roof is high too, so as not to pinch interior volume. This space is very easily expanded by folding down the second row seat backs to form a flat load floor. It's a quick 3-step operation requiring nothing more than flipping a few latches. You don't have to remove the headrests, and when you're ready to put the seats back upright, the seat belt latches pop into place automatically, so they aren't stuck under the cushions once everything is back up and in place. While I was using my dad to help get a couple shots of this car, he spotted a discarded rooftop carrier on the side of the road, and the 4Runner swallowed this large accoutrement easily on short notice. And after all, if a car can't support my dad's ability to harass my mom with road garbage, then it's no Toyota 4Runner. Now, on SR5 and limited models, a small 2-passenger third-row seat is an option back here. But I appreciate that unlike a lot of bigger SUVs now, you can still order a 4Runner without a third row. So for instance, a single guy could buy one of these without feeling like he was getting a dad car. This seat is reportedly very small, as you might expect given the lack of footwell clearance back here, and probably is suitable for small kids only. This is not the case, however, for the second row seat. The 4Runner's second row is big, with plenty of room for at least 2, maybe 3 full-framed adults. The seats are placed high for good visibility and support, the cushions are supportive, and the shape is good overall. Seating surfaces in this SR5 Premium are Toyota's pleather known as Softex. The main advantage of this stuff is that it's easier to clean than cloth. The SR5's Premium package also buys you a somewhat upgraded stereo system, puts turn signals on your side mirrors, and makes this sunroof an available option. Things like real leather, a JBL sound system, and dual-zone automatic climate control are reserved for the 4Runner Limited, which also comes with some upgraded trim both inside and out, for instance, chrome door handles and some wood grain on the dash. The standard features on all 4Runners include fog lights, projector headlamps and LED tails, power windows, locks and mirrors, cruise control, a rear backup camera, traction control, and stability control, just to name a few. Infotainment-wise, even the base system delivers a 6.1-inch touchscreen head unit, 8 speakers, an aux jack, a USB port, and Bluetooth. Now, that's what your base sticker price of about $36,000 is buying you. In any case, no matter what 4Runner you get, regardless of trim level, regardless of options, 2-wheel drive or 4-wheel drive, you have exactly one powertrain option. An old, big, simple, durable, naturally aspirated V6 mated to the same tried-and-true 5-speed automatic that originally hit the streets years before the original iPhone came out. This all-aluminum dual overhead cam, 4-valve per cylinder timing chain-driven 4.0-liter V6 is an excellent blend of refinement and durability, but it's not all that powerful. Very similar to the unit originally released in the 2003 4th-generation 4Runner, it's been mildly revised, with more advanced variable valve timing bumping horsepower up to 270. And 0 to 60 times suggest that this is enough to compensate for the 4Runner's 400-pound weight gain over its predecessor. But from a seat-of-the-pants measurement, I actually think the older model felt stronger. This may be due to the fact that despite the peak horsepower increase, this version of the 4-liter has lower peak torque than the old one, and that peak torque comes at significantly higher RPMs, and I don't think this pairs well with the significant weight gain. While the higher peak horsepower number wins bragging rights and is probably the reason that the 5th generation 4Runner is competitive with its predecessor in an all-out 0 to 60 sprint, I find it a little curious that Toyota wouldn't place more value on low-end grunt in such a utility-minded, truckish vehicle. As for the 5-speed automatic, I'm a firm believer that there is not a particularly strong correlation between number of gears and overall goodness of automatic transmissions. This is a good transmission. It's proven, it's durable, and it shifts well, if a little early for this engine's power band. This engine's tone is highly muted, but even if you do rev it up in an attempt to get it to roar, it's more of a hairdryer on full blast sort of noise. Between its subdued sound and its tendency to cruise along well below the peak of its power band, this powertrain came off to me as decidedly low-key for an enthusiast-oriented vehicle. What's not so low-key about the 4Runner, however, is its looks. Dated exterior design would typically be one of the reasons that an automaker would seek to redesign an aging model, but that doesn't seem to have become a sticking point here yet. The 4Runner's unique, striking appearance has aged well, and Toyota's seemingly constant introduction of new appearance items, colors, and wheels has kept the 4Runner sharp. They still catch my eye, and I think this SR5 looks awesome, with its non-metallic white paint job, black SR5 wheels, and knobby tires. The 5th Gen's overall profile has evolved from the older 4Runners, with their early sport ute, high floor, low roof proportions. This is somewhere in between those and an on-roader like a Tahoe or an Expedition. However, some classic 4Runner styling cues are featured prominently here. For instance, in the grille and the roof pillars. And of course out back, you've got that power roll-down rear windshield standard on every 4Runner since 1984. In a sea of floppy, round, look-alike car-based SUVs, the 4Runner's butch looks are a crowd pleaser. But if you find the steroid-injected lines and bulges to be a bit too much, the 4Runner-based Lexus GX460 stands as an excellent alternative. Additionally, I think the Lexus standard V8 is probably a better match overall for this chassis heft. Assembly quality is excellent, typical for this assembly plant. This exterior's fit and finish are quite good. But material quality and attention to detail in the design, two things that really separated Toyota from the pack 20 years ago, are thoroughly ordinary in this case. That theme carries through to the interior, which is, in the owner's words, a little Fisher-Price. If you told me 20 years ago that someday the Chevy Tahoe would feature a rich, sumptuous cabin, even in base form, while the Toyota 4Runner's cockpit would devolve into a sea of economy-grade hard plastic, I'd have been a little surprised. Then again, here in the year 2020, I suppose all bets are off. Cheap components aren't just present in here, but showcased prominently. For instance, all of the big, bold knobs on the center stack. If they had no choice but to make these so cheaply, they could have at least drawn less attention to them. The rather down-market material quality here, especially in contrast to the 1996 to 2002 third-generation 4Runner, is likely due to the way the 4Runner now slots into Toyota's global lineup. 20 years ago, the 4Runner was very similar to an overseas platform mate called the Toyota Land Cruiser Prado, and a Lexus version of the 4Runner didn't exist. For 2003, with the introduction of the 4th-generation 4Runner, a Lexus version called the GX appeared in the US, and the Lexus was now more closely aligned with that overseas Prado, while the 4Runner evolved into a decontented version, a cheapened version of those two SUVs. So, long story short, if you place a lot of value on a nice interior, look at the Lexus GX 460. While the overall ambiance may not be quite snob-worthy, I do give Toyota a lot of credit for adding as standard equipment in 2014 this very nice Optitron gauge cluster and leather-wrapped steering wheel. Of all of the things in a car's cockpit, these are a couple of the things that you touch and look at the very most, so at least they put their money where it mattered. That 2014 interior update also brought soft-touch material to the door panels and a leather-wrapped shift knob, although that's been replaced with an aftermarket knob here. Fortunately, and fitting for its mission, the 4Runner still hasn't succumbed to the electronic shift mechanism trend. However, I could do without the staggered shift gate. I'm sure you get used to it, but I found myself shifting into neutral rather than all the way into drive several times on the day that I drove this car. The 4Runner's interior comes in all black, or as in the case of this one, with tan upholstery. I prefer this. I think warmer, lighter colors are better for car interiors in the same way they are inside a house. However, this is a sort of half-in, half-out approach, with the floor, dashboard, and half of the door panels remaining black, and while this kind of color scheme has become more common, I'd prefer if they had gone all the way and offered a full tan cabin. As you settle into the 4Runner's cockpit, you'll find that it treats the driver quite well. This starts with the sheer space. You'd have to be truly big to feel in any way cramped in here. Regardless of what size you are, the standard tilt and telescope steering wheel and this SR5 Premium's 8-way power seats with lumbar allow you to situate yourself perfectly. The armrests are good, the cup holders are good, and the front seats are just excellent. These are very supportive and well formed from the thighs all the way up to the shoulders. The one ergonomic miss was, for me, an accelerator pedal that seemed a little small and up out of the way. Once moving in a straight line, you'll discover that the 5th Gen 4Runner does well on the highway. At speed, its comfortable, commanding driving position, soft ride, and quiet cabin soak up the miles with ease. There is quite a bit of tire noise in this one due to the knobby all-terrains, but that's a matter of choice. The ride may have more stray motion in it than a good car-based crossovers, but on the open road, the 4Runner's sheer weight and body-on-frame isolation offer a different sort of comfort. It feels like you're driving a tank around. For all of the supreme ride control of something like a modern Toyota Highlander, people still like this old stuff. People still like feeling like they're driving a tank. And that's at the heart of what sells the 4Runner, what recommends the 4Runner. It's a tank. There's little it can't do. There's little that will outlast it, and it feels tough. It makes you feel tough. People are always going to love that. And unlike with, for instance, a Wrangler, the compromises that you have to make to drive this daily versus, say, a Honda Pilot are substantially less intrusive. Plans aren't firm yet, but Toyota has suggested that a 6th generation 4Runner should appear sometime in the next couple of years. In the meantime, however, they don't really appear to be hurting for it. It's a class of one, and the 4Runner owns it. But I do have some opinions on where I'd like to see Toyota go from here. The upper end of the body-on-frame segment is saturated with entries from GM, Ford, Nissan, and even Toyota. The 4Runner's lower flank is more open, with the highly anticipated upcoming Ford Bronco stepping into the Jeep Wrangler space. Big picture, I think that the next 4Runner needs to be absolutely no heavier than this one, and actually losing weight would go a long way. In terms of sheer size, I would call this 5th gen ample, perhaps even a little excessive, and I personally wouldn't shed a tear if it lost a touch of that. Then again, I'm not buying one. The writing on the wall, however, tells me that people much more informed than I am have likely settled on the 4Runner's current dimensions based on the fact that body-on-frame construction yields diminishing returns as overall size decreases. So, I'm not sure how likely the 4Runner actually is to lose much size or weight, but again, less weight would without a doubt mitigate many of the most prominent concerns with the current model: acceleration, handling, and fuel economy. I think that the 4Runner should stick with a naturally aspirated V6. This configuration has become central to the 4Runner because it offers simplicity and durability. Even if this particular 4.0 has become a little long in the tooth, an updated V6 and again losing weight would both boost the 4Runner's currently lackluster acceleration. A newer transmission with more speeds, which I expect will come as a matter of course, would also contribute marginally to that end, as well as to fuel economy. Finally, I wish they'd tweak some things about the driving experience to better match the 4Runner's aggressive overall character. I think that a roaring, torquey engine and a less floaty ride would make the 4Runner more engaging to drive, without degrading comfort level too much. Historically, some of the most successful SUVs of this class have been considered too harsh by the press, and I actually think that people are more open to that kind of experience than conventional wisdom sometimes assumes. Until then, this is the only game in town, and you just can't go wrong with it. Reliability, depreciation, and consumer satisfaction metrics all come back good. Yes, it's been around forever, but that's kind of the point.